fuel. The country is struggling with the diesel shortage triggered by the conflict. The French Interior Minister has linked a foiled bomb attack in Paris to the US-Israeli war with Iran. Police arrested a suspect on Saturday as he was preparing to set off a homemade explosive device in front of the Bank of America building in the capital. 2 aid boats that went missing on their way to Cuba appear to have safely reached Havana. They're part of a humanitarian convoy carrying food and medical supplies to the island, which is facing an economic crisis worsened by a US fuel blockade. Sudan's Prime Minister has said Khartoum Airport is open again for international flights after years of disruption caused by the ongoing civil war. The reopening is seen as a key step in a return to normal life. Senegal's football team have been parading their Africa Cup of Nations trophy despite being stripped of the title. The team's captain led a lap
in controversies Michael Barkley, who asked her how being a daughter of 2 musicians impacted her early aspirations.
Tremendously. Not only did we hear music all the time, but, well, both of them taught school, so we would have to go to their holiday concerts. So sitting through a choral concert and band concert every year was part of the requirements. But they also insisted on us taking musical instruments until we graduated high school. So, I started piano, and then I started French horn, of course, recorder. We all started on recorder, and we continued until we graduated high school. So I was in marching band and orchestra and concert band and chorus and concert choir. So it definitely shaped my musical background. I know how to read music. I can walk into a studio and be a musician and say in church growing up as a child, because my mom used to play in church growing up as a child, her and her 2 sisters. So she passed away last year, and even while she was in the intensive care unit, you could see her growing up as a child, her and her 2 sisters. So she passed away last year, and even like an acre and a half of land. My dad was not only a musician but loved to build, so he put in a pool and decks and all kinds of additions to the home. For 2 Black Americans, growing up and raising children starting in the 60s, they really did have the American dream. They owned their own house. They, were thriving as in their careers, were well loved in the community. And when I look back, I said, that is what the American dream is all about.
Vanessa Williams. Our cultural critic is Arifa Akbar. Arifa, Vanessa Williams is a really good example of versatility in a creative.
It's such a great track record on screen. Not every screen star is great on stage, She plays the character that in the film is played by Meryl Streep. She plays the character that in the film is played by Meryl Streep. She's formidable in her own way.
Vanessa Williams.
Yes, she is. And I think even though I didn't enjoy seeing yet another film made into a stage show, this is a really lazy trend as far as I'm concerned, which is about making money.
Okay.
It's about cashing in. Having said all that, I do think that has more heart to it.
Thank you, Arifa. You're listening to The Arts Hour from the BBC World Service with me, Nikki Beattie, and you're listening to The Arts Hour from the BBC World. You're listening to The Arts Hour from a little potted bio before we chat. So Raoul Peck was born in Haiti and at the age of 8 fled the Duvalier dictatorship with his family to join his father in the Democratic Republic of the Congo. He studied industrial engineering and economics and worked as a New York City taxi driver and as a journalist and photographer before pursuing filmmaking. He was also Haiti's Minister of Culture from 1996 to 1997. Raoul Peck's films use historical, political and personal characters to tackle and recount societal issues and historical events. His latest film, Orwell 2+2=5, draws on the work of English writer George Orwell, particularly the lessons about totalitarianism from his famous novel 1984. 1984. Using archive and modern news footage, the film shows us how Orwell's political observations and predictions are relevant.
Continuous alteration of the past, and in the long run, probably demands a disbelief in the very existence of objective truth.
Raoul, tell us a bit about what drew you to his writing and what made now the moment for you to make this film, because it's, 75 years or so after he died?
Well, first of all, this was, and also encourage people to go and read his books and his thoughts.
So the first half of the film I found really difficult to watch at times because there's some quite graphic footage of human beings committing atrocities. What sort of discussions did you have about what might be too much for the audience?
Well, the reality is this is too much for most of... the reality is this is too much for most of the planet. It's reality for most of the planet. Haiti, I'm a Haitian citizen, and I went through dictatorship as a young boy in Congo as well. And I live in Germany, I study in Germany, so I know the impact of Nazism. I know the impact of war. So I try to be as realistic as possible in my films.
You've used clips
I try to be as realistic as possible in my films.
You've used clips to illustrate 1984 from Michael Anderson's 1956 black and white film. There's lots of archive. Did I see clips from